Welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate, a weekly podcast where I walk you through some of the wildest, most unbelievable stories you'll hear from the world of real estate. If you like real estate and you love crazy, this is the podcast for you. Before we get any further into this episode, I've got some information to share.
Oh, it's true. Real estate is super competitive and harder than you expected. That's why I created LeBlanc University. It's everything you need to take you from point A to point whatever your goal is. You could be new to the business or a seasoned vet. I'll help you break through to the next level so that your professional life can look exactly like you desire. Enroll in LeBlanc University today. I'll help you get there.
So I had shown this guy houses, and we finished up the tour, and he goes, okay, I want to make an offer on the Buckhead Broker listing on West Paces Ferry. And I'm like, great. I think that's a great house. He's like, yeah, that's definitely the one. And so sure enough, I write the offer. We negotiate it out. He signs off on the offer. He's going to tear it down, and he's going to build his dream home. And West Paces Ferry is the same street that the governor lives on. So it's the fanciest, smanciest street in Atlanta. So he's going to tear it down. So he doesn't do an inspection. They do an appraisal. It appraises out fine, no problem. As Sunday night comes, we're not doing a walkthrough. The guy's tearing the house down, right? So it doesn't matter. In fact, it's going to be cheaper if the house is falling down. So it's all good, right? So he drives by the house on Sunday. He's like, hey, Glenda, the people are still living in the house. And I'm like, there's nobody living in the house. Because when we showed it, it was vacant. It was an estate. I'm like, there's somebody living in the house. No, Glenda, I'm telling you, somebody's living in the house. I'm like, well, let me call the listing agent. So I call the listing agent, and this woman has been selling real estate forever. I mean, she is a legend in Atlanta. So I call her. I'm like, hey, Patty, it's Glenda. Is somebody living in the house? She's like, no, Glenda, nobody's living in the house. I'm like, well, the buyer drove by, and he said somebody was at the house. Oh, it was probably my assistant just picking up the sign, getting all the stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. No, nobody's living in the house. We're good to go. Monday morning, we go to closing. And I had picked him up. And so we're in the car together. We go to closing, sign off all the papers. I get paid. He gets the house. You know, life's great. And he goes, let's go by. I want to show you what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, let's go. So we drive up Habersham Road, and I get in the right lane. And he's like, well, the house is to the left. I'm like, no, the house is to the right. And he goes, Glenda, the house I bought's to the left. And I'm like, let me just humor him. So we turn left, and I'm driving down West Paces Ferry, and I see the Buckhead Broker sign, and my heart stops. Both of the listings on West Paces Ferry were both Buckhead Brokers.
Because of course they were.
My heart stopped. And I'm like, that did not happen. That did not happen. So we drive by. He goes, see, look, there's people. I flipped that car around like I am Mario Andretti. I flipped that around, and I am driving down. And literally, I'm thinking, I go to real estate jail for this. Like, I think I lose my license. Like, this is really bad right here. Oh my God, Glenda, this is bad. So I'm driving. I'm trying to remain calm, and I pull in the driveway of that other house, and I hop out of that car, and he's like, what is standing? He's speechless. I'm like, this is the house you bought. And he looks at me, and he sits down on this wall, this knee wall. And he's like, he's got his hands in his head in his hands. And he's like, did you sell me the wrong house? And I'm like, the wrong house? What are you talking about? This is the right house. This is an acre. Like, look at this. Can you imagine what you can do? Like, the location on the street, like, this is insane. Like, this is amazing. Your dream home, like, I can see it. The garage, the pool, like, look at the curb appeal here. And he looks at it, and he's like, you know? He's like, I think you could have never, ever, 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 ever gotten your home, the home of your dreams on that other lot. Who wants to live by the History Center, for God's sake? This is the premium area. And he goes, well, you know what? He goes, I think you're right. And I would have never gotten you that house for this price. He's like, Glenda, I think you're right. Because I think this is a much better lot. Literally, I got back in that car. I got that guy back to his house. I pulled over to the side of the road. I was physically ill. I saw my life flash before my eyes in that moment. I was like, I cannot believe this. Every time that agent sees me, she just showed one of my listings. It was appointment only. She goes, Glenda, every time I see you, I think about you selling the wrong house. And I'm like, no shit, lady. So do I.
Oh, you're enjoying this little clip? Well, the rest of the story is available on any of your podcast apps. Just go search for and subscribe to Crazy Shit in Real Estate with Leigh Brown.